stand up there, you sit back here. We can decide to use it or not, but I mean, if it works. That's what I'm saying. Absolutely.
Saved a seat for me up here.
Good evening and welcome to the Creswell City Council meeting, March 13, 2023. Would you please stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? Pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you all very much for coming to our meeting tonight. I need to announce that one of our counselors is ill tonight, Counselor Shuck, but she will be joining us. The TS up there is Tammy Shuck, and she will be participating in the meeting tonight electronically as per council rules. So with that, we move to item number 1, which is the public forum. This is a maximum of 30 minutes, and speakers are limited to 3 minutes apiece. If you wish to speak, you need to fill out a speaker form that's on the back table and turn it into Grace, our city recorder, and then we would be happy to have you speak to us for 3 minutes. So we're just going to do these tonight in the order they came in, so they're a little bit random, but we're going to do it in that order. First speaker tonight is Mike Johnson.
Here?
Yes, right there.
I figured. Okay. Thank you for allowing me the time to speak with you this evening. My name is Mike Johnson. I'm superintendent of the Creswell School District. I'm here to share some information with you about the Creswell School District bond measure 2342, which we are referring to the voters on the May 2023 election. Previously, I sent you the Creswell explanatory statement, and that describes some background information about our schools and the needs that we have to repair and update our facilities, increase safety and security, improve the learning environment, increase vocational training for careers, and establish a school-based health center. In 2018, the district conducted a facilities assessment that came along with a facilities assessment plan. And that plan included improvements over the next 10 years. This was in 2018. This assessment was conducted by engineers and architects. And in that facilities assessment, they determined that our facilities at Crest Lane and Creswell High School had been deteriorated to a point of where they were in poor condition. Some of the items that they noted there were floors with asbestos, electrical systems, roofing, and the such. In 2019 and 2022, we conducted strategic planning processes with the school district and the community, and a school-wide or community-wide needs assessment. In both of those needs assessments, it was determined by the community that the school's facilities were one of their major concerns. In 2019, over 3,500 citizens of Creswell participated in that needs assessment, and in 2022, over 2,000 participated in it. We had over 20,000 comments and statements for feedback during those assessments. In the year 2000, the Creswell citizens passed a bond in addition to Creswell Elementary School and another addition to the high school. That bond resulted in $4 per thousand increase in property taxes. In 2006, another bond was proposed and passed by the citizens of Creswell, and again, that bond went to $4 a thousand on assessed property values. This bond does not increase taxes. We're not asking for an increase in taxes. This bond, if passed, will also include an additional $4 million from the state in a grant bond matching grant. The project at the high school.
So Mike, that's your 3 minutes. So I'm going to have to ask you to wrap it up.
That's it. Well, this will provide several things for us. One is this bond and the repairs that will happen at the high school will provide us with a Creswell reunification site for the community. It will bring in economic stability for this entire community. Every bond dollar that comes in has an effect within the community of $1.50 to $2.50 for every dollar that we spend on construction. That much goes into gas, groceries, hardware, and all of the businesses in Creswell. Additionally, we will break our projects down so that all of our local contractors have equity in bidding on the jobs that this bond will produce with the projects. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Doug Allison.
She's not going to talk.
Good evening, Council and Mr. Mayor. Sarah and I are here as members of the PAC, representing Yes for Creswell Schools. I'm here to tell you, I'm requesting two things of you. As you look at this page about a statement of endorsement, I'm asking you to look that over. And what I'm asking for about it is for you to go to the next page that is about a statement of endorsement, and I'm asking you to endorse this. And at the bottom of option 1, so that we can have the elected officials of Creswell as a part of the endorsement that goes out to the citizens of Lane County in the voters pamphlet. I want to tell you why. I've been a volunteer at Crest Lane Elementary School for 10 years in the reading program. I've watched the teachers and the students. The teachers work amazingly hard to make sure that the students have it, but our schools are falling behind. The buildings themselves are falling behind. We need this endorsement. I'm the head football coach at the middle school. We need improvements over there. We have the only field in the school district that can be used year-round, rain or shine. And we don't get to use our field because of all the other teams that have to use it. We need lights on that field. We need another field that could take some of the burden off of that middle school football field so that we can actually practice on our field. We need that badly. I've served in 2 capacities at the high school for the last 8 years. One with the Aspire program, helping students as they graduate from high school, and one as a member of the site council. We need a new career and technical education facility. we are falling behind because we do not have those in our grasp. We need this bond, and I want to advocate for that, and I ask for your autograph, your signature, saying that you endorse this bond as well. That's it.
Thank you.
Thanks, Sarah.
Oh, yeah. No.
You did well.
Our next speaker is Lori Eichelberger.
Good evening, council members. Prior to moving to a property over off Emerald Parkway, I had a 6-acre vineyard, and we were farmers, and on that land we did burn during the allowable burning season. But when I moved here, a situation came up where some folks who live off of Tassa Creek were burning yard debris down in the slough. And so I was getting calls from folks who live on Pebble Beach who back up to that same slough area, being concerned about those fires going on down in that slough, because I don't know if you ever looked down in there. It's just trees and shrubs and weeds and stuff. And so I made several phone calls, because I'm the president of the homeowners association over there, another thankless job. And so I made several phone calls and was told that it actually is legal within the city limits of Creswell to do backyard burning during that burn season, which really surprised me. And so what I'm surprising, because, you know, I understand it, but at the same time, I think maybe the policy is outdated, needs to be updated, because it's, you know, proven fact that burning of any kind is harmful to the air quality, and also to, you know, spewing the toxic chemicals and particulates that get into our lungs, our waterways, our food sources. And then on top of everything else, wildfires have been a thing. In our own state, we've had out of control wildfires caused by different things. I actually lived in the Bay Area for a while, even though I'm a 5th generation Oregonian. I had to go there in the 80s to get work, and lived through the Oakland firestorm, and I can tell you, you never want to go through something like that. So what I am asking for you to consider is to update that policy and consider not allowing backyard burning within the city limits, especially as the city grows. You're going to have more population density, houses closer together, and so if something got out of control, you're going to have loss of life and property that would be really regretful. So just would like you to consider that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So while council, we don't engage in response to public comment, we can direct our city manager to follow up. So I would like to have our city manager follow up on the concern of fires in the slough. And also that if you make a note for a future council work session, that we can, as a council, take a look at our policy as regards to backyard burning. And you and I and Council President Castillo will kind of plan that out and put that on the agenda for a future council work session. Okay, next we have William H. Cook.
No, go ahead. I'm going to pass it right now until I learn a little bit more about this.
Okay, thank you. Next we have William D. Kent.
Okay. Brought some notes to try and keep me on track. Mayor Stram, council members, I want to thank you for allowing me some time. What I'd like to do is speak to you about the homeless situation we find ourselves in Creswell. And I hate to say it, I've lived here for 8 years, and I never really even noticed the situation until I came to a city council meeting. We had a report from the sheriff about the homeless in Creswell. And so I started looking into it. I started driving around, started meeting some of them, went down to Cottage Grove, met some of the homeless down there, met some of the homeless workers that work with the city of Cottage Grove, helping these people find some kind of shelter. And I even listened to the YouTube from Mr. Ross, our attorney, on how the state is going to handle the rules coming down from the two big cases. Then I listened to Springfield do the same kind of presentation, and they walked away with different ideas. So I can see that the law is going to change as it comes around. And in meeting, we're really fortunate in that most of the homeless in this town are in vehicles. That's really a step up from what they have in Springfield and Eugene, where you have so many, maybe half, that are in tents. So what I'd like to propose to the city is that you put together a separate council that's going to meet with some of the homeless, get their opinion on, I would not ask them, what would you like to see? And you know what? They wanted a safe, quiet place to sleep, kind of like everybody in Creswell. They even wanted a trash receptacle where they could keep the area clean, kind of think of Adopt a Highway. So I noticed that when you first tried to hand it off, none of the standing committees actually wanted to handle the football. So maybe you need a separate one going forward to kind of interface with the city. And we've got providers. We've got the New Hope Baptist Church that is looking to try and provide services. They're just looking for guidance from the city of what can we do that you guys want. I think, first of all, it would be instructive to the rest of Oregon that you guys have put together a committee to study it. If they're going to hand out money, who do you think they're going to give it to? Someone that hasn't done anything? Or the one that says, well, you know, we've been studying, we've kind of got a plan, we think we know what they want, and we started formulating what would it cost us to actually do something positive. So since our city motto is a friendly city, it'd be nice to know that people pointed to Creswell and said, look what they did. They put together a committee for communication, if nothing else. Thank you very much, Mayor.
Thank you, William. So this will continue to be a subject for council discussion, and I believe at our April work session, we're going to continue that discussion. So you are encouraged to attend, William.
Thank you.
All right. Next is Bill Spencer.
Hi. I got ready to come tonight and I had to decide what shirt to put on. I could have worn any number of brands or whatever, and I decided finally I'd wear a Creswell Bulldog shirt because I want to talk about the school bond. I went over the other day and looked at what is being proposed. I asked for the dollar figures. I asked what was going to be built. I already knew a lot of the needs. Working with young people like I do at the station, I know that there's some real needs for some of them to be able to have some technical training that's not available now. Some really talented kids that aren't getting a chance at that. But I just wanted to let you know, I knew that you were going to be asked to endorse the measure, but I wanted you to know that I've looked at the numbers, I've looked at what's being built, and I've built a couple of things in my life, and I feel good about this project. I feel it's the right thing for our school, and one of the things that we really need is an encouragement for both the teachers and the students. When you see something new being built, you get to go in a new classroom, you get a chance at some other classes, it's got to be a pick-me-up, right? So I just wanted to share that with you. I think this is a good project. If you choose to endorse it, that's great. If not, I hope you'll vote for it. Thank you.
And I have down here Sarah Cox as well.
What?
Not on the school lawn though.
Not on the school bond.
No. Okay.
Okay. So last week, I had a visit from Mayor Stram at my office, who came to talk to me about a proposal that Jim's gonna speak with you guys about in a bit. And as I look at the numbers as a business owner, I question how you guys came up with, the baseball coach is calling me, not how baseball coach is calling it. I am talking about the top.
Yes.
What my biggest question is, in looking at these numbers from 76 to Weimar to the dental office across the street from us, or the ones just down the corner here, is how are the numbers that are being proposed to get to the $4 to the single-family residents equitable across to all the businesses? We only have a small sampling of what these are going to look like. My question is, are these fees set? How did you guys come to these fees? And I'm not saying I don't know where these numbers came from, but to promote growth in our community and help people want to be here, how is this equitable to everyone across the boards? And that's all I wanted to know, and I was really hoping to go after Jim did his presentation.
Well, we actually do have a process where members of the public who wish to speak to a particular item on the agenda can do that. So if you hang around, when we get to that particular item, there will be a public hearing, and you can speak again.
I'm good.
Any members can speak again when we get to that item. Okay? And you don't even have to remind me, it's on my agenda. Okay, I believe that covers all of our speakers, so I want to say thank you all very much for coming and speaking tonight. We move on in our mayor's report to an announcement from Councilor Shelley Clark.
Thank you very much, Mayor. So part of one of the things that I have been able to be engaged in over the course of the last couple of months is being engaged with the Safe Routes to School program. And as you can probably imagine, we work on creating safe routes to schools. Shocking, I know. And so I wanted to share that on April 12th, we will have individuals here who are doing a walk audit. What they're looking for, and they're going to do a walk audit both in the morning and in the afternoon, so they're going to catch both times of school. They're going to be looking for safety pieces. They're going to be looking for what is the traffic flow? Are the crosswalks well marked? Are they well managed? And so I would like to invite you all and our fellow counselors as well, that if you would like to participate in that walk audit, again, it's April 12th, and there's going to be one in the morning and one in the afternoon. You can certainly get in contact with myself, and I'm happy to share more information. You can also get in touch with Curtis Thomas, who is our city planner, as Curtis has also been very involved with the Safe Routes to School program. And then, Mayor, I have one more announcement, if I have the floor still.
Yes, you do.
Excellent. So another thing that is coming up, because I love infrastructure. If you all have heard me talk in any of our work sessions, I love great roads. And so ODOT, so the Oregon Department of Transportation, is actually, their STIP program is open for public comment. And this is particularly exciting for the city of Creswell as we are trying to sway as much kind of eyeballs within our community as possible. And so if you are interested in getting more information, so STIP is the Statewide Transportation Improvement Plan or Improvement Projects. There's a couple of opportunities for you to provide feedback. And if I can sway you all to kind of think about a certain intersection where Highway 99 cuts right through the middle of town, right around the railroad crossing, that might be a good one to comment on. And so the opportunities for in-person comment are happening on March 23rd, which is a Thursday from 5 to 6:30 p.m. at the ODOT Area District Office, as well as April 10th, same time, so 5 to 6:30 p.m. And if in-person is not where you're looking to provide those comments, there are two opportunities for virtual feedback on April 6th from 6 to 7 p.m., as well as April 13th from 2 to 3 in the afternoon. And that's what I have. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Councilor Clark. So I've added two items to the mayor's report. The first is, many of you already know, but I wanted to say congratulations, and Bill, you wore that shirt tonight, to the Creswell High School boys basketball team. So if you didn't pick this article up, they entered the state tournament seeded 7th. They lost to the number 1 seed, to the number 2 seed. Then they knocked off the number 4 seed and the number 3 seed, if I'm correct. And while seeded 7th, they finished 4th in the state championships. So, congratulations, Mike. Congratulations, all Bulldogs fans. I don't know, I think 4th place in the state is really, really good, and we haven't done that well for a number of years, am I correct? Third, 3 years ago? So 4th is still really good. So anyway, just congratulations to our boys and to Coach Jesse Thomas for a very good season. And then counselors, I want to pass this out to you. It's from Kevin Prochu. One for Grace. This is a letter of resignation from Kevin, just submitted 3 days ago to me. Some of you may know that recently his daughter was hired to work here at the city. And Kevin was appointed in January to be a member of the Budget Committee. And we learned that that creates a potential conflict of interest. So I want to read this letter. Dear Mayor and Councilors, dated March 10, 2023, a few months back I applied to be on the Creswell Budget Committee. The Council graciously approved my appointment and I was looking forward to serving. However, even more recently, my daughter has accepted employment with the City of Creswell. As a result, this creates a potential conflict of interest when voting on the budget. To preserve transparency and avoid any appearance of nepotism, it would be appropriate for me to step down from the Budget Committee at this time. Please accept this letter as my resignation from the Budget Committee. As always, I am thankful for the opportunity to serve. Thank you for your understanding in the matter. Sincerely, Kevin N. Prochu. So what I'm going to ask the council to do is we need to accept his letter of resignation and then declare the position vacant and begin posting it. And as you know, Budget Committee season kicks in pretty quickly. So I'm going to ask, with the council's approval, that we move this down to item 6 and make it F so that we can act on it tonight, declare a vacancy, and begin receiving applications for a new member of the Budget Committee. So if I have your council consent, we'll move this down to and make it 6F. Council, do I have your consent?
Yes.
Okay, we will do that and return back to it. All right, we move on to correspondence, and I wonder if there's any council comments to correspondence that we have received. Councilor Smith.
My comment would be, are we sure it's trash and not yard debris? Are we 100%?
Which item are, which?
On the, on the burning. It's an important one for us to move forward and making sure.
Well, that's where I'm going to ask that Manager Amber would do you have a response, Manager Amber?
No, we weren't aware of the burn at the time it was happening, and so we have no idea. We don't check burning in the city. We're not the regulatory authority for that. Generally, that's El Rapa or the fire department.
Okay. I'm sorry, but this isn't a time for additional comments.
Okay, because I have that information.
You certainly may send an email to our city manager
Yeah,
about
I was
that.
there, I was the
Okay.
witness, yeah.
Okay. Have any further questions, Councilor Smith? Okay. Any other additional council comments about correspondence we've received? Okay, thank you. So, we move on to the consent calendar. And in the consent calendar, all items listed are considered routine and are enacted by a single motion unless there is an item that council members wish to pull for the sake of correcting it. Councilors, is there anything that you wish to pull from the consent calendar for the purpose of correction? If not, then I'm entertaining a motion to accept the consent calendar as presented. We have a motion on the floor from Councilor Osborne.
I move that we accept the consent calendar as is, without any changes.
Is there a second? We have a second from Councilor Clark. Is there any further discussion? Council will then proceed to vote. All those in favor, please raise your hand. All those opposed, same sign. Councilor Shuck? Are you online, Councilor Shuck?
She's muted.
Yes,
We have voted. Is your vote for or against the consent calendar?
my vote is yes, in support.
Okay, thank you very much. Motion passes unanimously. We move on to the administrative report, Manager Amber.
Thank you, Mayor. The first thing in the administrative report is the bills. You can ask any questions you like on the bills, and I'll do my best to try and remember and answer your questions.
My only question was about the signage on the $17,267.16.
Yes, I believe that's to replace the reader board that's on City Hall.
Okay,
The
it
reader
hasn't
board
been done
is,
yet.
no, the reader board is old and is out of warranty. So if anything goes wrong, we can't repair it. So Finance Director Piper has been saving up to replace the sign, and this seems to be the time to do it. We're gonna get a really fancy new sign that's color and state of the art, so that'll be nice and easy to read.
Okay, thank you very much.
Any additional questions? Councilor Smith?
I got one question on the Robert Half. I assume that is an employee.
It's a temporary employee that we needed to put in place while we were hiring permanent.
Is that a part-time or full-time?
It was a full-time position.
Additional questions? Councilor Clark?
All right, Councilor Osborne actually asked my question about the sign, but I had another question. It's on page 2 of the bills. There was a HD Fowler company for $10,098.92. I was just interested what that was.
That is something I will turn over to Cliff. Those are public works charges.
HD Fowler is our pipe and water parts supplier, so that's an order for stock.
Any more questions? All right.
Can you?
Oh, Councilor Holt?
Sorry, you missed my hand. Can you tell me just a little bit more about what local government law group is?
That's our city attorney.
Oh, okay.
Okay, Manager Amber.
Okay, the next item is the Lane County Sheriff calls for service, and we have Sergeant Alex here, Speldrich.
That's correct.
To give you an update.
We're gonna put something up on the screen here in a second. Apologize, it's my first city council meeting. It's nice to see everybody.
Nothing is going up on the screen, you just speak to it.
Okay. Okay. And I
Sorry.
apologize. I misunderstood, I'm sorry. Okay, so in going over this last month's call for services, it's pretty much par for the course with what the trend has been in Creswell. We have the same general calls for service that are coming up at about the same rate. We had a total of 156 calls for service. That does not include like vehicle stops or if I were to stop and talk to somebody just on a street, that doesn't count. Okay, these are calls for services that are counted in here. And the trend is, as I said, pretty par for the course. I don't have anything out of the ordinary to report here.
Okay, Councilor, do you have questions for Sergeant Speldrich? And welcome to the city.
Thank you, happy to be here.
Councilors, questions? Councilor Clark?
Hello, welcome. So I know we were able to speak about the homeless and houseless population during the last work session. I was just wondering if you had any update or anything that the city should be aware of.
The population has remained static since last time we talked about. It's anywhere between 7 to 12 people is what I'm seeing and hearing from my deputies. And we are currently discussing what we're going to do with the car campers and you know, what direction to kind of point them in. For now, we're gonna go back to the 72-hour parking rule and go from there, so.
Yeah, thank you, Sergeant. So the 72-hour parking rule, is that actually a citation or is that just a verbal warning, or how does that work?
So the plan to enforce that would be to say, hey, you have 72 hours to move your vehicle. And if they don't comply with that, then we could cite them under the municipal code.
Okay. And of the vehicle, how many of those are actual speeding violations? Do you know?
So on the calls for service?
Yeah, under vehicle, which would be, I guess, it just says illegal parking and vehicles, traffic hazards. So I'm assuming, does that include traffic speeding violations?
So these calls for service that are listed here are not what the citations were issued for. These would be type crashes that we respond to or traffic hazards. It does not include if we stop a vehicle and write them a ticket for like a speeding violation. The only citations that would fall under that would be traffic crimes, such as if somebody were to get a DUI or something like that, it would fall under that.
Can that be included?
Yeah, I could include that in the numbers.
That would be great.
Yes.
Thank you.
So, Councilor Castillo, are you asking Sergeant Spellers to include traffic citations?
Yes, or speeding violations.
Specifically speeding violations?
Yes.
I could find a way to compile that and put that in for next month.
That'd be great.
Yes.
Thank you, sir.
No problem.
So my question is similar. We've had some conversations about traffic on A Street. How's it going? Are we doing any better of watching people there, letting them know there's a police presence as they go up and down A Street, and maybe giving out citations? How's that going?
So one of my deputies controls the speed signs that you see, the reader signs, and he moved one to right next to Holt Park on A Street. So that's very visible to people. And deputies have been focusing their traffic patrols, especially during the day, on A Street itself. I haven't noticed any uptick in the citations or traffic stops for anything on A Street necessarily, but we are increasing our patrol presence there for traffic.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions? Councilor Clark.
All right, and so I also noticed that we had a Measure 11 crime. I was wondering if you could speak to that.
Yes, so there was one Measure 11 crime. It was a robbery that occurred, and it was a situation that occurred where the suspect is known to the victim and they were able to identify them, that type of stuff. It's not like a public safety type of issue. I can't speak to too much of the specifics of that case because it's still an active case, but that was the only case that stood out this last month too, so.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Manager Amberg.
Thank you, Sergeant. The next report is from our city attorney's office. You can see that we did use the attorney quite a bit and probably will continue to be using the attorney's office as we move through the springtime and look at some of our ordinances and resolutions that are coming along. Then you have your code enforcement report. And she provided more information on the dogs at large and temporary signs for you to review, as well as pictures of a cleanup on Killingsworth.
So, council, any questions about code enforcement? I just was curious about temporary signs because that comes up really huge on this chart. Sign code violation. So, can you speak to what's happening in Creswell with signs that are not in compliance?
Yeah, people like to put signs out on the right-of-way, and that is not allowed. We do allow A-frame signs that are immediately adjacent to your business if you want to send one out on the sidewalk to encourage business. However, we do not allow temporary signs to be put in the right-of-way for advertising purposes or for other purposes.
Okay. Thank you. Any other questions, councilors?
The next is the building permit recap, and that gives you an idea of what our building volumes are in the city of Creswell. And that wraps up the administrative reports for this evening.
Okay. So we move on to the council action items. First is item A, to adopt the city manager's goals for 2023.
Thank you, Mayor. As you know, we discussed these at the last work session, and they are now before you for adoption.
All right, councilors. Questions for Manager Amber, comments, discussion? We reviewed these at our work session 2 weeks ago. If not, then I'm entertaining a motion to adopt Manager Amber's goals for 2023. Councilor Clark.
I move to adopt the goals for Manager Amberg for 2023.
All right, we have a motion on the floor. Do we have a second?
Second.
Councilor Castillo seconds the motion. Is there any further discussion? If none, then we will proceed to vote. All those in favor, please raise your hand. And Councilor Shuck?
My vote is yes.
All right. All opposed, please raise your hand. Motion passes unanimously. We move on to item B. This is a public hearing. So first I have just a question about process, knowing that we have members of the public who would like to hear the information and then possibly comment during the public hearing. So Manager Amber, is there any reason we can't swap the two around and have the presentation for Jim first and then the public hearing?
No, you can have the presentation first if you would so like.
All right, so councilors, I'm asking if you would consent to swapping A and B and having the presentation first and then the public hearing. Yes? Okay, so we're going to invite Jim Piper up for a presentation.
Thank you, Mayor, City Councilors. The item before you is an amendment to the Creswell Municipal Code, Title 13. It'll add a new chapter adopting a transportation utility fee. This process began, I think, right after we adopted the transportation system plan. If I recall, it dates back to 2019, 2018, possibly, that the council has been looking at a way to fund the transportation needs of the city. There was an ad hoc committee formed, and there were several discussions about different options to fund transportation needs, and there was a pros and cons to every single one of them. The committee ultimately recommended a transportation utility fee, and this has gone now to City Council work session, and at this point, City Council's asked some great questions over the last couple weeks, and had a chance to respond to all of you and get those questions addressed. The ordinance has some provisions in it that were very helpful, I think, in answering some of the questions. Some of the things I'd like to point out is that there is a section spelled out on implementation, but more importantly, waiver of fees in certain circumstances. One of the circumstances that really stands out is a business here in town that has a building that's built for two purposes. They're not using one of those purposes right now. And under the waiver portion of the ordinance, they could apply for that to the city manager until that business is either picked up by another person or they resume business. But in the interim, there's a 100% waiver for vacancies. There's also waivers for hardships, unemployment, a motor vehicle discount if you don't own a motor vehicle. And can show that to the city manager. There is an appeals process lined out. And then we get to Exhibit B, which is the actual rates schedule. There is the single-family dwelling detached home rate at $4, but then you'll see there's different rates for other types of residential housing. Apartments are lower. Mobile home parks have a lower rate. And then if you look further down at the non-residential tough rates, those rates are broken into low traffic and high traffic generating businesses. We tried with a 6 rate model for non-residential, and it just became too much of a burden for the restaurants, especially those with drive-up windows. They were potentially paying the most, and now we've broken it down into two buckets. And so, as Sarah had asked before, how does this rate work for businesses? How does it look equitable? Well, we use the International Transportation Engineers Guide. They've been doing this for decades. They've been doing trip counts, and they document how those trip counts break down for each business. And there's 100 codes in there, if not more. And so the formula is based on those trips. And so we basically broke it down to a really basic, either a low traffic generating or a high traffic generating business. And those rates are $5.43. Now that's also multiplied by the 1,000 square foot that you occupy. So your footprint has an impact. If you're a larger building, the idea is that you're going to generate more customers. So that has an impact on it as well. And then we've got class 3, which allows for special circumstances. So if it doesn't fall within those first 2 categories, or there's something unique about the business, they can come and have a discussion with us about that. And under special circumstances, there's a note that these are categories with trip generating characteristics that either are not documented in the IT manual or have special circumstances, like I had mentioned, and they merit a separate fee calculation. An example of that include the gas stations, which are in the IT manual, but they are calculated by fueling position. Schools, assisted living facilities, and most importantly, the aviation facilities. There's discussion about how do we bill the hangars, which we bill them for public safety. We can also bill them for the use of the roads. And I think this will also address businesses that are leasing space to do business on properties as well, like the trucking school. There was a question about that as well. I think they would fit in that category. All this being said, it is a formula, and it was done by a professional who works in this field and has spent decades in this field and has done many of these for many cities in Oregon. I think we've got a pretty fine-tuned model here, and I would just ask the council consider this ordinance, and staff recommends that you approve the ordinance number 555.
Okay. So with your presentation, we are going to move to our public hearing. And then following that, then the council will have opportunity for further questions of Jim and discussion of this item. So, the City Council will now conduct a public hearing on ordinance number 555, an ordinance amending Creswell Municipal Code Title 13 to add a new chapter adopting a transportation utility fee. The City Council wishes to hear from anyone who is interested in commenting on ordinance number 555 and ordinance amending Creswell Municipal Code Title 13 to add a new chapter adopting a transportation utility fee. Please come forward to the podium and state your name. So at this time, the public hearing is open. Would anyone like to speak to this?
All right, I'll break the ice for you all. Goodness gracious. Okay, so I want to go back. So I own a business here in this town, and I'm so thankful for the community support that we have and that we're able to offer a service to this community. That said, Jim and I have worked on some other projects, or just had some other discussions about this, and I have ran the numbers that we have seen from patients since last January to current. And I know that there are other businesses who have a very similar footprint who are paying a fraction of what we are. So I just feel like while this guy has done a lot of these IT studies, we know that this is just a rough calculation and maybe not 100% accurate. And if we're going to be, I am totally happy supporting the roadways. I know that we put our footprint on them and we have to do our part, but it's gotta be equitable. It can't just be like, well, you have this many square feet and we think you see this. That's not it. I think that before you guys implement these fees, you guys should do some local studies. And like, I can tell you exactly how many patients we've seen monthly since the beginning of last year. I could go further back if needed, but I think it would be interesting if you guys ran numbers from each of the businesses and found out how much traffic is actually being generated. And assess your fees from there.
Thank you. Mr. Spencer.
I'm hoping for an answer. I believe that there's a way to appeal the numbers, but I don't have any idea if that's going to require us to hire a professional that can do traffic counts, or if it can be more informal, because if it's too expensive, some people may not be able to handle that either. So I'd like to see that question answered later. Thank you.
Thank you. Jessica's coming up first.
Oh.
So,
Stand up.
not assuming that I know all of your names, when you come forward, please state your name.
I'm Jessica.
Do we need a last name too?
No.
Probably, yes.
Lanstra. So, yeah, I mean, I own a business too, and I was kind of looking at the sheet that Mary Stram brought me, and it lists other businesses and has the numbers. And I was trying, my business is not on there, and I was trying to, based on the idea, knowing it's, you know, square footage, I don't own my building, I have no idea what my traffic count would be based on, you know, I have public parking, I can't count it just based on transactions necessarily. I have no idea where I would even stand on that sheet, and so me, you know, owning a business, wanting to budget myself and understand what my bill might be changing to, I'm also, you know, I'm leasing 2 separate buildings as well. Would they both be, you know, I get 2 separate bills right now, would they both be taxed separately on, you know, on this? And I'm kind of new to this, so I'm trying to learn, that's why I'm here, and I'm just not understanding exactly where I would stand, because it's a little hard to compare. Based on the numbers that I saw, they were vastly different. And so I'm trying to understand where I would stand, and again, I don't have any issue supporting all this because I've driven these roads for a very long time. And, we need to put money into them. And I'm happy to support that. I just want to know where I'm at so that I can kind of do my part and know how it's going to affect my business. Thank you.
Thank you.
My name is Patrick Gearing. Just main couple questions I had about this was, so like I noticed that the mill wasn't included on the list. Is Sanipack going to be included on the list because of the size of their vehicles? They're doing just as much damage to city streets. Is LTD going to be charged because of the buses? Or is this just going to be put on the citizens of Creswell?
Thank you. We keep the public hearing open for 1 minute. If anybody pops up, we have all the time we need to listen to you.
When will this be voted on?
Tonight.
Will these be voted on tonight?
Hold on.
I'm Daniel Basaraba. I'm one of the owners of the old Bald Knob Mill site where the trucking school is, and I don't see that on there, and I don't really see a comparable for industrial space, so wondering if we can get where that would fall in line with this as well. Thank you.
So if you wish to speak or ask a question, just come up to the podium.
Hi, I'm Dana Popero, and we rent some space here. We lease some from Daniel at the old mill. And we've had a business for over 40 years. We were in Springfield, decided to move out here to Creswell. It's been lovely. But definitely, I think the roads need improvement. There needs to be an answer with all that. I think square footage is definitely not the way to do it because, look at Bi-Mart, for instance, they're gonna have more people. Maybe we have the same square footage. We don't have the volume that Bi-Mart has. So I think that maybe you need to take his analysis, look at it, tweak it. Definitely, I feel like you guys probably out here do need to have some kind of traffic numbers really before you could say, vote that in or whatnot. But yeah, we definitely will bring some more traffic, so the roads do need to be improved, but better education before implementing anything.
end the public hearing. So now it is the city council's time to discuss, ask more questions, debate, and make a decision. So first I'm going to ask Mr. Piper, I'm going to put you back on the spot again. I took notes as fast as I could, so I would like you to address some of the questions that were brought up for information purposes. First one is the appeal process brought up by Mr. Spencer.
That's a great question. The appeal process refers to section 13.40.030, which is administration of the program. A property owner desiring an interpretation or other examination of the tough category must submit a written application to city manager. The application must provide sufficient detail to allow an interpretation. You may require, that as a city manager, may require additional information, including engineering study prepared by a licensed professional engineer or IT manual methodology. And I'll go back to the word may. So it's not a requirement, but it could be called upon if the other information isn't clear. And then the decision of the city manager under this subsection may be appealed to the city council as well. So there is a pretty well-written appeal process in the ordinance itself.
Okay, the second question I had down came from Jessica, and that had to do with what is my tough? And I believe on the most recent model you presented, Jessica's business is on there.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. So farmlands with a $4 single-family dwelling fee, then that changes the business fee. For 2,000 square feet, it would be $16.29, and I believe that's about the size of her business. I had to go onto RLID, which is a Lane County's database for taxation, and they have a neat little drawing tool that you can draw on the visual map and get square footage of a building.
So the second question that Jessica asked was, you lease two buildings. Can you clarify what the second building is so that Jim can respond to that question?
21 North 2nd Street. It is a commercial use building, the office right behind the store.
Okay, do you know the square footage of that one?
Yeah, I was gonna say maybe 1,000.
Yeah, it's just an office.
Yeah.
So that's gonna be below the 40 trip count, 1,000 square foot. I believe that's $5.43.
Okay. Then Patrick Gearing asked the question about the mill. Patrick, were you referring to the mill west of town, up Butte Road? Okay. Question was, will they pay it tough?
If they're in city limits, I'll pay it tough. And that'll be for industrial. I think we're gonna have to look into the manual on that one. It may be a category 3 where there isn't any clear guidance on that one. And I think there's another question about that as well.
Madam Chairman,
Yeah, I would recommend that that be placed in category 3 and that we do work with our consultant to come up with a fair and reasonable tough for that business.
Is that mill in the city limits?
Yes.
Okay. Second question from Patrick had to do with Sanapac.
Unfortunately, the law won't allow the city council to enact an ordinance that will impose a fee on somebody who doesn't actually reside or have a physical location inside the city limits. Sanapac will pay a rate. There's going to be a few vehicles that fall into this category that just travel through. They do provide a service to the city, though, that goes beyond. There's another question about the water truck that comes through and fills up with water, Mackenzie Mist, and the same situation where we're not going to be able to enforce it tough on them. However, they do help pay for the water through their purchases through the city. So there are other benefits to these businesses being in town.
Plus Sanapac does pay a franchise fee.
They do.
For the use of our roads.
Yes.
And then Patrick asked a question about LTD.
LTD is a tough one. They provide a service, and they stand by that they're providing our residents a transportation option. So that's a tough one.
Andrew Amber.
A transportation utility fee isn't designed to generate revenue off of vehicles. It's designed to generate revenue off of vehicle trips to businesses and residences within our community. So having a place in our community, that's what that's the philosophy behind the transportation utility fee, is that the places in our community bring people to our community and use the streets, and the street is a direct benefit to those places. And so that is why that's the structure of the TUF. If you wanted to capture people just driving through our community, a gas tax may be a way to look at that. But again, you're not going to catch buses, and you're not going to catch FedEx, and you're not going to catch Sanapac because they all have their own fueling facilities. So there is no good tool in our toolbox to capture the kinds of road trips that are not to a actual facility or a place-based node in our community.
Yeah, that's an excellent point, Manager Amberg, and they do pay state gas tax and vehicle registration fees, and those go into a pool, and then we get our portion of that pool, not based explicitly on sales in the city, but just statewide sales, and there's a formula there based on our city population.
Okay, then Daniel Bastraba, is that correct? Basaraba asked the question about Bald Knob Mill and the trucking site, and were you looking for an idea what the TUF would be?
Well, how would you categorize the trucking school? Would it be a class 3? And some others have touched on the point of square footage being, a disparity where you've got just a handful of people on a 45, acre parcel or something like that. How would you? What would, in a category 3, is there a specific fee, or is that subjective to somebody else's? How would you come up with that?
I think that would be something we'd have to address with our specialist who works on these types of fees. The square footage is developed square footage. It won't be the square footage of the entire lot. I can assure you there, but we will have to work with our consultant on that one.
Then I had a question from Dana Popero, sorry about that. Rental space at the old mill, is that?
It's what he just said. basically, just touching on
The bald knob.
the bald knob mill, how we would be taxed on that.
Okay, Manager Amber?
With the transportation utility fee, industrial sites are often a special class. So what we can do is we can meet with our consultant who has a background in calculating these fees, find out a little bit more about your business, and let you know what the TUF will be.
Okay, so those are the questions I wrote down. I want to make sure that Jim responded to the questions that were asked by members of our public.
So if you vote today, though, if you vote today, go ahead.
Manager Amber?
You're wondering what your fee will be?
Yeah. I mean, would we appeal that, or
yes.
would we be okay with that?
I would say the route to be would be to fill out an appeal right away. And that way we can work on it separately. Tonight, the process that will be undertaken by the City Council, this is an ordinance, so it will be read twice. If City Council decides to move it forward tonight, it will be read twice by title. They will take a vote on it. If it's approved unanimously, it will pass tonight. If it's not approved unanimously, it will move on to a second reading, which will be next month. So we may have some time, if it's not unanimous, to sit down with you and let you know what the rate will be. It will not go into effect until 30 days after it's passed.
Now, the ordinance also states it will not go into effect until July 1st.
So there's definitely time, and I will add that in section 13.40.8080, the minimum for a non-residential fee would be equal to that imposed on a single-family dwelling. So that's at least, it gives you an idea of the floor. It could be $4, it could likely be more.
Okay, there's a question?
Yeah, so would we be able to, with the lack of real clear information at this point, are we able to ask council to vote no for now and get more information on this? And what would be the process to seek that information before looking to affirmative vote on this?
Manager Amber?
If City Council were to vote no on it tonight, it would be dead. So I think that answers your question.
Okay. Those are the questions from the public. I think Jim responded well. Thank you very much. So now, council, it's your turn. And first of all, I want to see if there's councilors, if you have questions that you want to ask Jim about the TUF, about the ordinance, or questions for Manager Amberg about the process.
Yeah, I get it, okay.
Councilor Holt.
I do have a question for you. Do we have a methodology in place for class number 3? Do we have an identified methodology that we're going to use to calculate the special circumstance rates?
I can tell you, it's case by case, and we would draw in our consultants, and it would have to be something that we could legally defend. So it wouldn't be some willy-nilly number that we pull out of the sky, for lack of better terms, but it would be something that would be thought of in detail.
Would the same methodology need to apply to every special circumstance business?
Only those that are the same. So if the circumstances were the same, it would be applied the same, yes.
So at the time of today, right now, we don't have a methodology in place. Like, we don't know how that's going to look.
Manager Amber.
We will take into account factors that are provided by the business in order to make the decision. And it will be a methodology that is consistent with what is done throughout the state for that particular kind of business. But I know that one TUF in a community that I worked in that we imposed, there was a cap set on it. It was a mill. So mills are great places for employment and usually provide tremendous benefit to a community, but often provide also tremendously large and impactful trucks that go through a community. So you try to weigh that out and try not to overburden the mill. The mill that was in the community that I was in was over 200 trucks a day. So that tough would have been unreasonable for that mill to pay. So we worked with the mill, we worked with the strategy, we worked with a consultant, and we came up with what was fair in the eyes of the mill and also provided for the care and maintenance of our streets.
So I need to mention that our period for public comment is ended.
I have a question.
Our period is ended, so it's now the council's time. Okay, other questions for Jim? Okay, well, I have about 5 of them. From the ordinances I read through, the first one is page 6 of the ordinance, which talks about the fee imposition, 13.40.050. It said, property owners with specific activities and uses of property that result in extraordinary wear and tear or structural damage to a city transportation facility may be assessed a special damage assessment fee, which is determined by the city manager on a case-by-case basis. So I'm curious what's meant by a special damage assessment fee?
That would be something that would be, what's the term, egregious? Something that would be significantly impactful to the transportation system. And again, it's just open to a case-by-case basis. It would be something that we would have to be able to defend. So it would be very obvious.
Okay, and then on page 7, there's the example, this is under item D2 of non-residential properties and class 3. That includes gas stations, hospitals, universities, schools, parks, assisted living centers, fairgrounds, golf courses, and aviation facilities. Would this also apply to churches that may have lots of space but are only used a few times a week, and their space may be much larger than the actual volume of people who come?
I think it could be under special circumstances. I also think that it may be under waivers too, where if they have a vacancy on part of their building. There was one in particular that had a school as part of their actual plans that were submitted, and the school is no longer being used. So I think in that case they have a good case for vacancy of that portion of their building.
Okay. Manager Amber.
I caution against automatically taking a classification that is listed in the engineering manual and saying it's a special class. That the trip generations have already been done on that classification. The studies are in the book. They've been tried by the courts. And I think in most of the cases, if not all the cases, we can rely on what the trip manual says. The issue comes up when we don't have a clear number in the trip manual, or we may have extenuating circumstances like a mill, or an extenuating circumstance like we have overbuilt our building and we're not using all our building anymore. But for a regular church, I would not agree with the thought that a waiver or anything like that would be applicable, because we have good numbers for them in the books already. Although we would enjoy and we would encourage communication and discussion around it, I would not want to set somebody's hopes up that it's going to be adjusted against the manual.
Okay.
That's good.
Page 8 was, quite honestly, I just didn't understand this page. Mixed use and related properties. So I just wrote a big question mark under page 8. I don't understand. Can you explain?
Mixed uses are gonna be where they have maybe residential on top of commercial. There's obviously different fees for those different dwellings or units. So there has to be a section here for mixed use and related properties.
So,
I think like 13.40.090, mixed use with multiple use categories that share a single water meter was a question that came up. I think Dr. Bond asked that one. It just clearly states that, they'll get one utility bill will show the TUF for each of those buildings.
so 2 buildings on the same site,
Yeah.
but they currently only receive 1 utility billing from the city, and they're billed one time for all the water usage. So they would be paying a single fee.
Yeah.
Okay. Page number 9, A, number 1, says no fee parking lots are not subject to the TUF as they do not themselves generate traffic. Parking lots that charge for parking, such as a storage or sales lot that charges a fee, are subject to the TUF. Do we have any parking lots in Creswell that charge for parking?
We don't, but we want this ordinance to survive for decades. So if there were a parking lot to open up and say Diamond Parking came in and started charging parking fees, then we'd want to charge them a TUF.
Okay, and my last question, page 13. This has to do with the TUF rate schedule. And just a question, it says ADTs. What's the ADT? Does that mean average daily trips?
Yes.
Okay. Okay, so those are my questions. Council members, any other questions you have for Jim about the ordinance? Oh.
I was just curious, timeshare, are you capturing rentals there? Is that, I'm looking at the rates schedule. Is that like Airbnbs, things like that, or is?
I don't know how many timeshares we have in Creswell currently. Who knows what the future holds?
Would that capture things like Airbnb and or VRBO, things like that?
I think it's meant more for like Airbnbs might fall in that category, but I think it's more for like these timeshares where you buy in and you
vacation rentals,
vacation
right?
rentals, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Councilor Castillo?
Yes, just a couple of questions or more for clarification. Under the 13.40.110 billings and collection, number 5, page 46 in our packets.
Okay.
Sorry, mine is different. And under number 5,
would you state again which item we're looking
it's
at?
13.40.110 billings and collection.
It's on page 10 of 13.
Okay, thank you.
And number 5, I just don't understand what, if payments received from city utility buildings are inadequate to satisfy in full all balances, credit will be applied proportionally between funds unless directed otherwise by the city manager. Between funds, what is meant by what funds?
The utility bill.
Yeah, the utility bill.
The utility bill collects several fees. There's a water fee, there's a sewer fee, there's a public safety fee, and this could possibly be another fee that's being put on it. This means if you don't pay your utility bill in full, they will be paid proportionally. So they will be credited proportionally. So a certain amount of your fee will go to the water bill, a certain amount will go to the sewer bill, a certain amount will go to public safety, and a certain amount will go to the transportation utility fee.
And then the user or customer will owe the balance.
It will still, the remainder will be owed to the city.
Okay, and then just under the hardship under the hardship waiver, it states that it would be based off of 80% of the HUD median income. Is that the 78,000 that was kind of like, we thought was kind of high during the work session? Is that the number you went with?
We would have to look at what the HUD median income is.
Okay.
That's a number that's published by the federal government. So we would have to find out that number. We typically don't deal with that number because we don't provide services to that group of people. Those are generally nonprofits. So we would need to consult to find out what that number is. The median income that you are familiar with is just the median income, but it's not the HUD limit.
Could be lower, could be higher. We don't know.
We don't know. I would hate to try and guess what the federal limit is. Like I said, we don't track that. But for these purposes, we can find it out pretty easily.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions for Jim? Councilor Clark?
I had a couple of questions, and so I'm actually going to start at the very beginning, and then I'm just going to go through. So I'm starting on page 6 of the ordinance. I noticed, so it's under 13.40.080 fee determination adjustments and terminations. I noticed that so the TUF would be calculated as a monthly service charge and collected from owners or occupants of developed property in a manner similar to the collection of city water or sewer fees. And then fees need not be invoiced monthly, but will be invoiced for intervals no longer than 3 months. And so what I was reading from that, and please correct me if I'm misunderstanding, that if you wanted to kind of store up your TUF for 3 months and make one 3-month payment at a time, that'd be allowed.
I don't think that's what that means. Right. That means that we will bill on a billing cycle of 1 month and no less than once every 3 months. It's just about our billing cycle, not about the payment cycle.
Great. Excellent. And then I also, is it okay for me to continue with my questions?
You have the floor.
Fantastic. Okay. I also noticed, so on page 7, that it says annually, so under C, under that same fee determination, adjustments and termination, that the Transportation and Public Works Committee would meet to review the amount of the TUF and make a recommendation of that amount to the City Council at the February work session. So again, just to clarify, so the Transportation and Public Works Committee meets annually to make a recommendation around the sewer rates, the water rates, and this would be a third charge for that committee is to revisit that rate annually, correct?
I think the Water Rate Advisory Committee is a separate piece of that Transportation and Public Works Committee. I think it will be a decision made by.
The intent of that paragraph is that it will be reviewed on an annual basis and the rates will be set by the Transportation and Public Works Committee, just as the other rates are set.
Yeah.
The one difference I want to throw in is that the Water Advisory Committee is a separate committee that's also composed of citizens. So the way the ordinance is drafted is this would be set by the Transportation and Public Works City Council Committee, not by the same committee. The Water Committee also involves citizens. So the way this is drafted, this would not. So Councilor Clark still has the floor.
I need more clarification on that.
Okay. So we'll come back to that.
Okay, sure.
So on page 11, under 13.40.130, so the waiver of fees. So I noticed that there was a number of waivers that were available. So a vacancy waiver, a hardship waiver, an unemployment waiver, as well as a motor vehicle discount. And so if anyone wanted to apply for one of those waivers, would the process be to come to City Hall and be able to apply?
Correct. We'll have to come up with a form and have all the suitable spaces for them to fill out what they're applying for. And it would be reviewed by the city manager.
And I think those are all my questions for right now.
All right, Counselor Holt?
I just needed some additional clarification on the intent of the committee that you would put together. Are you saying that community members would not be part of that committee?
Well, Manager Amber, as the ordinance is drafted, it states the Transportation and Public Works Committee would meet. So that's a 3-member committee composed of counselors. So that's how it's drafted in the ordinance.
So the answer then is yes, that community members would not be part of that committee.
Manager Amber?
I don't think when it was drafted that was the intent, and we certainly can amend the language tonight to include community members if the city council so desires.
Then I would like to make a motion that we amend the language to, I don't know how to word this, but to make it so that community members are part of the committee that sets our transportation utility fee rates.
Manager Amber?
Would you like to amend that motion to make it so that the Water Rate Advisory Board sets the transportation utility fee? That would automatically take it into the realm of 3 citizens, 3 people from city council.
I would be okay with that.
Okay.
I feel better about having citizens involved in the process.
Yeah, it's part of our charter. The Water Rate Advisory Committee is part of our charter. So we can add additional, if the city council so desires, you could add additional work to their plate. And it would be something that would be in perpetuity that way.
So, Counselor Holt, you made a motion. Would you like to restate that motion?
Sure, let me think about the best way. I would like to make a motion that we add the setting of the transportation utility fee rates to the Water Rate Advisory Committee docket. Is that close?
Okay, we have a motion on the floor. Is there a second?
Second.
I would second that.
I heard a voice. Counselor Shuck, that was your voice, wasn't it?
Thank you, yes. Still fake.
All right, so we have a motion on the floor and a second. So I'm going to ask our city recorder if you can state the motion as you have typed it up.
So I have that the TUF is assigned to the Water Rate Advisory Board.
For annual review.
Annual review.
Water Advisory Committee.
So the TUF is assigned to the Water Rate Advisory Committee for annual review.
Is that correct, Counselor Holt?
Yes.
Okay, we have a motion and a second on the floor. Is there any further council discussion of this motion? Councilor Castillo.
Just a question. So then that would be brought forth, much like the Water Rate Advisory Board, as a recommendation to the council. Thank you.
Okay, we have a motion. Any further discussion? All right, Counselor Shuck, any further discussion?
No, sir.
All right, council will proceed to vote on the motion. All those in favor, please raise your hand. All those opposed, Counselor Shuck.
My vote is yes.
All right, any opposed? Motion passes unanimously. All right, any further council questions about the ordinance? All right, seeing none, thank you, Jim. Now is the council's opportunity to discuss this item and decide how to proceed. Councilor Clark.
Yeah, I think what I've heard overwhelmingly from everyone in the audience, as well as what I've heard from just conversations with citizens of Creswell, is that there's no question that our roads need work.
and that we need to be investing in our roads, and we have a lot of projects to fund. And so I have not heard any disagreement from anyone on that. I think the question that I've heard, and that what I've been hearing even from the audience, is kind of what about my specific business, and how does that apply to me? And so that's where I'm still sitting with that question of how do we move forward with balancing the need to repair our roads and care for our roads, and also make sure that we're considering each of our businesses.
Okay. Councilor Castillo.
Thank you, Mayor. Yes, I too have had many conversations with citizens, did a little door knocking and so forth. And I too, with total agreement, I didn't talk to anyone that disagreed that there's a need to repair the roads here in Creswell. That's pretty obvious. But what I did, one of the biggest things I took away from the conversations was, out of approximately 50 so people, I only ran into 2 that knew about the TUF. And for me, that was kind of pretty concerning. I would also like to make a motion that we postpone this vote until the April City Council work session.
Okay, we have a motion on the floor to postpone the vote until the April City Council work session.
Sorry.
Yes.
For a reason, just to get more information out, people learn about it, and maybe even answer some more questions.
Right, we have a motion on the floor to postpone till the April City Council meeting so that people can get more information and response. Is there a second on that motion?
I have a comment.
I need to have the hand raised, please.
I thought you saw it. We don't vote at the work session, is that true?
No, this vote would happen at the City Council.
Well, he was saying the
regular
work session.
meeting.
That's what I wanted to just point out, that it should be the City Council meeting, not the work session in April.
Yes, this would be the regularly scheduled City Council meeting.
Okay.
Okay, is there a second on that motion?
I'll second.
We have a second from Councilor Holt. Council discussion. Councilor Clark.
Yes, so my question, I think it's maybe a discussion, is from a process perspective, is again, what we've heard very consistently is again, that the roads need work. And so I want to make sure that we're addressing the issue that has been presented to us, and that we're not forgetting that when we delay, our roads still need work. And I'm not saying that that's not the right decision to make. I just want to be mindful of, as we delay, our roads continue to deteriorate. And so from a process perspective, if we delay the vote, do we need to consider the exact same ordinance that is in front of us now? Or do we need, I guess, what is the process moving forward? Because I want to make sure that we don't accidentally table something which essentially ends up we are not able to vote on that. So,
Manager Amber.
If you were to vote tonight to move it to the April City Council meeting, staff would bring to you the same packet and materials that we brought to you tonight, unless you directed us differently. If you voted tonight to move it to the April City Council meeting, I would want to know whether you want to discuss this at the March work session, if you want to discuss it further at the March work session. At that time, you could amend the ordinance, you could amend the chart, you could amend whatever seems reasonable at the time. So to say that this exact document would come back to you in April, I can't answer that, because it can be amended. It can be amended tonight. It can be amended at a work session. It can be amended at the April City Council meeting. But as it stands right now, we would bring the amended version of the document to you that exists tonight.
And to clarify, this is not a motion to table, but to postpone. So it's a postponement to a definite time. Okay, Councilor Clark.
Excellent, I just wanted that clarification, as we have kind of tripped ourselves up in the past based off of kind of tabling or postponing, so I just wanted to make sure that what it is that we were proposing is what it is that we wanted to do. I was gonna say the other question and the other process question that I have that I think that we've talked about earlier tonight is that since it's an ordinance, we would, if it does not pass unanimously, it would come back to the April session again and to be voted on. Could it be amended at that point in time?
No, because the first reading would be a vote on it, and so the period for amending it would be closed. You'd have to essentially vote on it twice again.
Okay, again, sorry, I just want to make sure that I'm understanding everything correctly. So if we were to vote no on it tonight, then the vote dies and it doesn't move forward at all.
That's correct.
Great. If we vote to vote yes, or if we don't get a unanimous, then the exact same motion moves forward in April.
If you vote no on the motion that's currently on the floor, and then vote yes on if you vote yes on the ordinance, but it's not a majority vote, then it will move to the April City Council meeting. Okay. Is that clear?
I think so.
Okay.
Excellent. Okay, and then if it moves forward as it is right now, it cannot be amended in April.
If you vote no on the motion that is on the floor now, and then it's read twice by title and is passed by less than a unanimous vote, it will go to a second reading in April and cannot be amended between the two votes.
Thank you.
Does that make sense?
Yes. Okay, any other councilors wishing to speak to the motion? All right, well, I would like to, yes, Councilor Shuck.
Thank you, Mayor. My only concern is kicking the can down the road. We brought citizens in, we had a road ad hoc committee a year ago. And I understand that some of our constituents are just now learning about the TUF. But we've been working on this for a year, and I don't want to miss this budget cycle.
All right, anything further, Councilor Shuck?
No.
Manager Amberg.
Oh, I forgot what I was going to say. There's one more procedural thing. If the motion carries tonight and it is postponed to the April City Council meeting, I would recommend that you have another public hearing before you take a vote. So you would have this, it's not mandatory, but I think it would be important before you take a vote on the ordinance to have a public hearing associated with the meeting at which you're taking the vote. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay.
Councilor Shuck, any further comments this time?
No, sir.
All right, Councilor Castillo.
Another public hearing sounds like a great idea. And one of the things that was mentioned a couple of times was, why haven't we seen this in the newspaper? Maybe we can put an ad in the paper, somehow get it in there. I really appreciate the social media posts that started. I think it started around the 7th, right? I think that's when I saw the first post. Maybe just keep that up, just to make people aware. Whatever we, maybe even on the reader board before it dies on us. So, yeah, that's it.
Councilor Clark.
I am filled with questions tonight. So another process question. So it sounds, again, maybe not, it sounds like if this were to be postponed and then move forward for discussion at the March work session, will all counselors and will all individuals be present to be able to discuss that? And if not, which is okay, does it make sense for us to postpone the vote for longer so that all counselors can weigh in and be part of the conversation?
Councilor Chuck, I believe that you will not be present for the March work session?
That's correct.
Okay, I think the rest of you will all be here present. I will be in the meeting electronically. I will be out of town. So I have a few thoughts as well I'd like to share. The Transportation System Master Plan was adopted by the city in 2019. So 3+ years ago, the city became aware of the needs long-term for roads in Creswell. And that's a 20-year plan that calls for improvements to the city's road system for $26 million. So it was in 2019-20 that the city council began working on it. But while many people aren't aware of what we're talking about tonight, a TUF, I dare say most people who live in Creswell are aware of our road needs and have been for a long time. I moved here in 1982, and aside from a half a dozen roads that have been built since then, most of the roads I drive on every day in Creswell are the same as what I drove on in 1982. And the sidewalks that I didn't walk on in 1982, I still don't walk on. So one of the comments that our consultant said to us was, he said, time is your enemy. Our 20-year master plan calls for doing major road work every 3 years, but due to our lack of funding, we're set back to doing major road work every 6 years. And so his point was, your roads are deteriorating faster than you're maintaining them. And that really caught my attention. Another thing that he said in his presentation was, he used the word defensible. He said, you have to have a system set up that is defensible, because across the country, when cities enact TUFs, they have to defend them in various ways. He also used the word appeal. He said, you have to have a system in place where residences, businesses can appeal that. And so one of the things I like about what we have in place here is, as you've observed, there's an appeal process. There's a waiver process. There's a communication process. So it's not like we adopt something hard and fast and there's no opportunity for concerned businesses to say, hey, I want to make an appeal of this. That's built into this process. I went out and had conversations. For a few weeks I talked to residential people, and just kind of random. One person I ran into in a cafe, not even in Creswell, who I found out was a member of Creswell community, and I talked to that individual. What I found out with the individuals I talked to was that nobody objected to paying a TUF. And no one objected to paying $375 a month, which was, at the time, what we were talking about. In fact, the range of an acceptable TUF varied from $375 a month to $10 a month. Some people said, we need it so bad, I'll pay $10 a month in my house. We need to do this. Over the last week, I went out and talked to businesses and pastors of churches, and I talked to 25 different people who own businesses or pastor churches. And I showed them the rates for the TUF 3.1, which is what we've been talking about and what's built into this ordinance, $4 a month per residential, and then everything factors out from that. I found that 3 pastors had concerns about their rate. 4 pastors voiced support for the TUF and said they didn't have a problem with what they'd be paying. The business owners were all very glad for the communication and the information. One business manager strongly objected. Several had questions, which went to Jim. And I'm in the process of getting back to those business people. Some of you are here tonight and you've got some answers. But overall, what I found was the business owners were supportive of the TUF. One business owner said, well, we have to have roads to get people to my business, so I'm more than happy to do my share to maintain them. So So I found across the board that Creswellians were aware of the need and were supportive of it. And as I have stepped back and looked at it, I think we have to have a solution for Creswell that is fair for everybody. The word was used, not equitable. We have to have a solution that's doable. And as I talked to residents, one of the pieces of information that came out was that 96% of those who will pay the tough in Creswell are residences. And so what I found was that people who own homes or live in apartments said, I'll pay my share of that. We have to have a mechanism in place that's adequate. We're looking at a $255,000 a year funding gap to fix our roads. And I think we have to have something that's timely. We've been talking about this for years. As I said to one person, we began this conversation in 2019, and in 4 years, guess how much money we've raised for streets in Creswell? Zero. We've done a lot of talking. We formed a committee 3 years ago that looked at a gas tax and decided that was not the best solution. We formed a committee a year ago that came back with a recommendation for a transportation utility fee. We hired a contractor. Here we are, 4 years later after the plan was put in place, and we still have no plan in place. And I think we have to look at a long-term funding mechanism. We don't have a short-term fix we need in Creswell. As long as you and I live here, we've got roads, we've got to maintain them, and nobody else is going to pay the bill but us. So I'm not really in favor of continuing to move it down the road. So those are my thoughts. I think we're ready to have a vote on the motion, but we're going to have to pause a minute until Councilor Osborne returns. So we're going to take just a brief recess until Councilor Osborne returns.
That should be answered, and for him to say that they've reached out. I own 70% of the city's industrial space, and nobody's reached out to me at any point. Yeah, my office is right there at the mill, but they have my contacts. Nobody's reached out to me.
Do that, and I think but at some point.
All right, we are reconvening the meeting. And Councilors, are there any final discussion before we vote on the motion? Councilor Holt.
I just wanted to comment on how, what a great example you made. You were talking about the constituents that you reached out and talked to, and by and large, this was their feedback. And I think it's really important to highlight this because we all represent our community in different ways. And I did not get that same feedback from the people that I talked to. And I think that it's important that that's noted because it's important for all of us to bring back all feedback, from the different, so the feedback that I got was by and large, yes, I see a need, but we would like to vote on this. That's what I heard over and over again. And so I just wanted to bring that up but say thank you for sharing that because I think it's important for those conversations to happen. We all represent different pieces of our community, but we do it together. So thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Castillo.
Just one last comment, Mayor. I hope no one, the councilors don't misunderstand me, audience don't misunderstand me. I totally 100% support this tough. And I know it's taken us a long time to get here. And I don't think 30 more days is going to make or break us one way or the other. And what is important important to me is that the citizens know what we are about to consider rather than what we have done as they play catch-up. Come July is probably when a lot of folks are going to find out what has happened. So that's all I was just trying to avoid. Thank you.
All right, council will now vote. Councilor Clark, last comment.
I just also wanted to share, I think similar to what Councilor Castillo's also just shared, is that I am absolutely in support of the TUF. I'm absolutely in support of the schedule or the fee schedule that has been laid out for 96% of our residents being $4 per month. It is exactly where kind of it hits the sweet spot of here's how much money we need to be able to generate each year. It's not overcharging. For 96% of our residents, it's not overcharging anything. It is, like I said, it's on the money, to use a phrase. I also think that we have processes in place as amended that we're going to review this TUF and make recommendations every year. And so I'm supportive of that. I am nervous about the 30 days because I think that we've had some good questions tonight that I think our community would benefit from having a little bit more specific information. And so that is what I'm balancing. And I want to make sure that, and this was the reason for all of my process questions, is that we don't make a mistake to be able to, that loses our forward momentum. As I understood the process a few weeks ago in the March in the March work session, in the February work session, was that there was a high likelihood that this would not pass unanimously, and so that it would need to go to another vote in April as well. And so I think I'm balancing that 30 days right now and how that might benefit our community. But I don't want to lose the forward momentum that we've created here. I look back often at the mission of the city of Creswell because it is posted on our back wall, and so I look at are we providing quality, reliable, and affordable city services to city residents and businesses, creating a safe, livable, attractive community with a unique small town atmosphere. And if we were to look at our current funding structure without the TUF, we are not. And so I want to make sure that the decisions that we make help us live our mission and are centered on our mission. And so, like I said, that I'm just balancing that 30-day. That's where I'm sitting in my head right now.
Hey, Councilor Holt.
I personally am in support of postponing this. I think that it needs to go back to work session. I think we have too many unanswered questions. And when we have so many people in here tonight asking questions and we get in their answer as well, we'd have to look that up, or I don't know. I don't think that that's adequate at this time. Thank you.
Well, I'm going to disagree in that I think there are great questions that have been asked, and I think there are good answers available. And while I think there are a lot of good questions, I haven't heard a lot of pushback on the concept itself. Questions have to do with how does this apply to my business? How does this apply to what I'm doing, my space? And there's a process in place for figuring that out, for working with our community. Councilor Smith.
Well, I run a small business and I understand your guys' concerns in budgeting, and if it was me, I would want to know ahead of time what we're going to pay so you can factor that into your budget, your employees, retirement plans. There's a lot involved, and I would not want to deter businesses from Creswell because that is one way that we expand as well. So there is a fine balance, and I think more information I believe there's some questions that weren't quite answered. I believe a lot of questions were, but I feel if we have any questions at all, we're not ready.
Councilor Clark.
So I'm going to ask another process question because I want to make sure that we know what we're doing. I apologize to everyone for my process questions. So if we were to postpone the vote and move this forward or make adjustments, move it forward in April, if it does not pass unanimously, then it would be voted on in May, correct? Okay, and that would be before that July 1 implementation date? Okay. Thank you.
So then with that, I want to ask Manager Amber a question. If it passes in May, what's the likelihood that it will go into effect July 1st?
I can't answer that question because you'll also be voting on the budget in May, and the same people who will be implementing the budget at the end of the year are the same people who will be figuring out what the TUF will be. And so we are very limited in our staff. We only have one finance director, and we have one utility clerk. And so she will be setting up all of the water and sewer accounts. She will be setting up the public safety fee as well. So obviously, the more time that you can provide, the more we can assure that we can meet that July 1st date. The more time gets shortened, the less I can guarantee that. But we will make a concerted effort.
And then a follow-up question I have from Mr. Councilor Smith was, can the city give tough amounts to businesses who in the next month say, hey, what's my amount going to be?
If they would like to call and inquire, I'm sure we could, if they have their data and their information, we can assist them, I'm sure of that. The hard part is making sure everyone knows before they get the bill what it will be if they don't ask. Again, though, we could get overloaded, and we will do the best we can, but people need to understand we're a very small city with very few staff, and time is going to be an issue.
Councilor Castillo.
I am very confident in our amazing, hardworking staff that I hear so much about all the time. I'm very confident in you guys.
My concern is burnout. That's the truth. We have a budget season coming up. There's a lot of work when we're doing the budget by itself, and we have people who work very hard, and I really appreciate the hard work that they do, and they do their best, and they work their tails off, and I'm not going to push them into a position of burnout. We will do our best.
All right. The council will proceed to vote on the motion on the floor, which is to postpone the vote on this ordinance until the April City Council meeting. All those in favor, please raise your hand. Councilor Shuck.
Yes.
All right.
My vote is in favor.
I will make it unanimous. All those opposed, raise your hand. Motion passes unanimously. This will return to the council at the April council meeting. And the question to the council is, do you want this on the agenda for the March work session for further discussion? Yes. All right, we'll put it on the March work session for further discussion. Thank you. We move on to item 6C. Ordinance number 556, an ordinance adopting the rules and regulations of Creswell Airport Hobby Field and repealing ordinance number 502 and declaring an emergency. Manager Humble.
Thank you, Council. Before you is ordinance number 556, which is before you for adoption of the rules and regulations that we have updated and revised at several different work
I think
sessions.
the microphone's off.
Thank you.
Okay, better? Still dealing with the crud that's, seems to last forever. Before you is ordinance number 556, which is before you for adoption, is the updated revised version of the airport rules and regulations that we have discussed at airport commission meetings and also at 2 work sessions with council. I'm here to answer any questions if you have them.
Questions for Manager Humble?
I do have a question.
Councilor Holt?
I realized that we went through this in the work session and everything, but a new question has popped into my head just today, so I apologize. But I'm thinking in terms of the homeless rules that we're going to have to come up with for this summer. And I noticed that one of the other small towns recently made a resolution that very clearly defined that their airport was only for airport use. And I didn't jump back through here really quick, but do we have something like that in here specifically? I felt like we did.
It's an FAA rule.
Okay.
The only thing that can be at the airport is aviation.
Okay, so
Yes.
we're covered there. I just wanted to make sure.
Yes.
Okay.
We're controlled by our grant assurances because we take FAA grant funding. And one of those is only people or businesses on the airport are for aviation.
So there's really no reason to actually make a resolution that says that specifically? It's covered?
I don't believe so.
Okay, thank you. That's all I have.
Okay. Any other councilor questions for Manager Humble? If not, then I'm entertaining a motion on Manager Amber.
Just a quick reminder, this is an ordinance, so it needs to be read twice by title.
All right, I'm entertaining a motion on item 6C. Councilor Clark.
I move that council adopt ordinance number 556, an ordinance adopting the rules and regulations of Creswell Airport Hobby Field and repealing ordinance number 502 and declaring an emergency. For the second time, I move that council adopt ordinance number 556, an ordinance adopting the rules and regulations of Creswell Airport Hobby Field and repealing ordinance number 502 and declaring an emergency.
We have a motion on the floor, read twice by title. Is there a second?
Second.
Councilor Castillo seconds the motion. Any further discussion? Council will proceed to vote. All those in favor, please raise your hand. Councilor Shuck?
I am in favor. Thank you.
All those opposed, same sign. Motion passes unanimously. We move to item 6D, also Manager Amber, Manager Humble, and Jim Piper, Core 2023 grant approval.
Yes, council, before you, I had come before council previously explaining that I was applying for these 2 core grants. And we were notified in February that we were lucky enough to be awarded these 2 grants. So the first grant, 6D, is for the security cameras on the airport. The grant is for $25,000 total. The grant funding cycle will pay for $22,500 and the city will be responsible, the airport will be responsible for $2,500.
All right, council, questions for Manager Humble? If not, then I am entertaining a motion on item 6D.
No, you have to do the motion first.
We're looking for a motion.
Make the motion. Go ahead.
Councilor Osborne.
I move that the city council authorize city manager Michelle Amberg to complete the 2023 core grant paperwork associated with the funding and completion of the airport security improvements, purchase and install security cameras at the airport.
I have a motion on the floor. Is there a second? Councilor Castillo seconds the motion. Any further discussion? Council will proceed to vote. All those in favor, please raise your hand. Councilor Shuck?
I am in favor, thank you.
All those opposed, same sign. Motion passes unanimously. We move to item 6E, acceptance of Core 2023 grant approval for a ham base station with tower and satellite phones. Jim and Shelley.
Again, before council is the second grant that I applied for in the 2023 core cycle. This is to purchase and install a ham base station at the airport for the EOC communication, as well as a tower for that ham base station, and to purchase satellite phones for the EOC.
All right. Questions from the council for Manager Humble? Councilor Smith.
I'd like to know, since you manage the airport, I want to know your opinion on the benefit of this.
The benefit of this is we are also listed as an EOC on the east side for the city. So if we do have a major disaster and the phone system goes down and internet is not available or cell phones are not available, we will need to have a way of communication. So the two options are ham base stations and also satellite phones. So what that does is that brings us to the ability to stay open and to stay functional as an EOC should something happen. It also puts us at a higher priority list for the state because we will be one of those few airports that will be still standing should Cascadia hit. Again, I can tell you the funding is $25,000 total grant, $22,500 from the core grant funding system, and $2,500 from the airport, or from the general fund emergency section.
Any additional questions? Okay, Councilor Castillo.
Can you get all the grants this fast?
I wish. I have way too many grants going right now. I'm trying to just keep up.
I'm entertaining a motion on item 6E. Councilor Castillo.
I move that the City Council authorize City Manager Michelle Amber to complete the 2023 core grant paperwork associated with the funding and completion of the EOC communication system improvements, purchase and install a ham-based station with tower, and purchase satellite phones.
Motion on the floor. Is there a second? Councilor Osborne seconds the motion. Any further discussion? Council will proceed to vote. All those in favor, please raise your hand. Councilor Shuck?
I vote as yes.
All those opposed, same sign. Motion passes unanimously. So we added tonight an F, which is council to accept the resignation from Kevin Prochu from the Creswell Budget Committee and declare the position vacant, and thus receive applications, notice it, and receive applications for a citizen representative on the Budget Committee. So I'm looking to the council for a motion to accept the resignation of Kevin Prochu. Councilor Holt.
I motion that we accept the resignation of Kevin Prochu from the Budget Committee.
Okay, we have a motion on the floor. Is there a second? Councilor Osborne seconds the motion. Any further discussion? Council will proceed to vote. All those in favor, please raise your hand. Councilor Shuck?
I'm in favor, though we will certainly miss Kevin.
All those opposed, same sign. Motion passes unanimously. So Grace, if you will notice that. And council members, you are encouraged to talk to residents of Creswell that might make a good Budget Committee member. All right, with that, we have upcoming meetings and events that are noted here. And before we adjourn, I want to thank Mike Johnson and Doug for staying clear to the end. And I think after the meeting's over, they will approach all the councilors to see about getting your signature. With that, we are adjourned.